Hello and welcome to Be a Brilliant Human. This is my first episode and my first go at doing a podcast. So my name's Joel Young. I'm mostly known as the creator and custodian of MPA, which stands for non-personal awareness, and the MPA process, which is a simple way to stop taking things personally. Now, this is an interesting experience for me. I've thought about doing a podcast for a long time. And this very day, I'm actually on a course. I'm in the middle of a course about setting up, starting, and implementing your podcast. And one of the things that is my lunchtime task is to record my first episode. So here I am diving in blind. And it's part of a bigger, I guess, commitment that I've made in my life, definitely in the second half of this year, which is 2019, which is my commitment to imperfection. So this might be rough and ready, and it's certainly part of what I want to do on this podcast is to sort of be willing just to dive in, just to talk to you. You've taken the time to find me, to download the episode, to listen to me. And so it's my wish to just be able to sort of whatever the topics that I cover is just to talk to you, just to connect with you. And so that's what this is. And today I just want to introduce you to me, to the podcast, what my intentions are for it, what you can expect, and a bit about, what I'm about. And hopefully that'll help you connect and feel like you want to keep listening to this podcast. So where shall I begin? Well, as I say, I'm most known as creator of MPA. So a very quick backstory on that. Back in 2007, I'd been in the personal development field for about 12 years at that point. And I was doing really well. I was working with someone called Brandon Bays, who does a method called the journey process. And I'd gone through the ranks and was kind of journey golden boy. I was teaching her work all over the world. And I was sat in a coffee shop in Abingdon in Oxfordshire in the UK. And a prayer was kind of born through me, which went something like this. Okay, God, grace, whatever you want to call it, the universe, is there something specific that you would like to give me that I can serve humanity with? And the answer to that prayer came a week later in the same coffee shop when I was journaling, and 6 simple lines, which I now call the MPA process, literally popped out of me. And what they've done, apart from the fact that I started teaching it in 2009, it spread to I've been saying 18 countries for years now, but for countries around the world, it's helped thousands of people, and it's really rewritten what I have come to understand is the essence of personal growth, spirituality, awakening, whatever you want to call that stuff. So I've become known for that. And then more recently, the whole Be a Brilliant Human thing is that I realized that while I've been teaching the method MPA for years, my real passion is beyond the scope of just MPA. So while on this podcast, we're going to talk a lot about MPA, non-personal awareness, the philosophies behind it. It really is more of an expression of my love of helping people to be better versions of themselves. And really not about being perfect, not about being hitting all the right notes of what it means to be a spiritual or conscious person, but just being real, being, and in all of that, being an amazing human being. You can do all the consciousness work, but it's really about, how can I improve that? Because if you're like me, then you're someone who's committed to growth as a general principle in life. Growth, learning, improving yourself, and being a brilliant human. It's in your essence, but it's also a skill. So part of what I want to do with this time that we have together is kind of share my perspectives on some great ways you can do that, to cover topics, to open the box on some gnarly things in life, to be really real about what it is to be a brilliant human in this rather crazy world. Okay, so let me talk a bit about what you can expect from me in this podcast. Well, what can you expect from me in this podcast? I better think about the question myself. So I guess in general, the sort of topics I'm going to be covering, there's lots of different areas in the general realm, of personal growth, but some things that I really love. Oh, look, see, Imperfection. My phone wasn't on silent. So I love communication. I think communication is a really important part of being a brilliant human. Communicating well, communicating consciously, if you like, communicating in ways that serve you in terms of your boundaries. Another big issue for me, or big area that I love to talk about, in terms of communicating kindly, wisely. So all areas of communication. So I think that's going to be a big part of it. Evolution, healing, improvement. I mean, that's an underlying area that I want to look at. So looking at healing for me isn't about fixing. It's about really sort of if there's parts of us that need to come to light that maybe aren't working for us in some way. Maybe they worked in the past, but there's a recognition that there can be some improvement there. We'll be looking at that. And evolution as a general principle, which is, we are evolutionary beings, and certainly if you're going to be into conscious growth, which means that which is probably why you found this podcast in the first place, then there's that real acknowledgement that that we do evolve over time. We're never done, no matter how much amazing, deep inner healing work you've done, no matter how much of your childhood you've gone back to and resolved. There's always more. So that's a big part of the philosophy that I have. We're also going to talk about mastery. Again, mastery for me is really about understanding that the more you practice something. I'm big on practicing. So, for example, MPA is a really simple 6-line process, very fast. It can make a difference to your life. But I describe it as a practice because the more you practice something, or the more you practice MPA, for example, the more it kind of soaks into your life, soaks into your consciousness. And mastery is something which you always start with, with no frigging clue. But the more you practice it, the more you come into that space of what they call unconscious competence. It becomes more automatic. And that's when you meet mastery. And in all the different areas that we cover, we'll be talking about coming into a place of mastery. Now, again, I think if you're someone that has done, a fair bit of work on yourself, I mean, I hope that this podcast meets people, whether they're brand new to the idea of, in quotes, waking up or self-development, or whether you've, had years and years of it. There are things that I'm going to cover which you may have heard before. So there'll be like reminders of what it means to be, this conscious person in this wonderful world, and reminders of things that. So I might repeat things several times. I'm a great believer in repetition as a form of learning. So I'll be coming back to reminders, and hopefully I'll offer you some new perspectives. When MPA was born back in 2007, it was really sort of quite uncommon for people to talk about wholeness. It was very much in that binary, either you're enlightened or you're unconscious, you're a muggle. And right from back then, I began talking about wholeness, embracing the shadow, which nowadays is, if you listen to all these kind of podcasts, or, you follow people on social media, there's a lot more discussion around embracing the shadow self, meeting your deeper, darker emotions, which I love, because that was one of the core things, one of the prayers that I had right back then was to bring more of a kind of a wholeness mindset to things. But there's always new perspectives coming through, and I hope that if you listen over time to me here, then there'll be lots of new perspectives that I can offer you that'll make you go, that's really interesting, and make you think, maybe challenge you somewhat, because challenge is always the beginning of growth, right? So these are some of my intentions. So what else can I tell you about? Well, okay, what am I for and against, I suppose? Against, again, has got bad PR in the spiritual realm, but it's important, I think, that you know what I'm about. And I think it's important that we all have a sense of what we're about, which includes kind of knowing, what you really stand for, and what you're really not into. So for me, it's all about being human. So part of my history is I've had many years really steeped in some of the sort of non-dual spiritual traditions. Now, non-duality is kind of a philosophy in and of itself. But if I was to sort of sum it up in terms of how I experienced it and how it's taught, a lot of it really does a lot of what I call ego bashing. So I'm really in favor of embracing our imperfect selves. I really stand for people being a better version of their humanity rather than the constantly striving for a constant state of enlightenment. So that's going to be a big theme that we talk about. So what do I mean by just humanity? Well, it's about living a human life. It's like, even if you're here and, I'm all for people who want to go and, sit in an ashram and do that thing. But the overwhelming majority of people who are interested in self-development, they live in this world. And for the most part, my audience are going to be sort of Western world kind of folk. And we live in a very busy human world. And I'm not a fan of bashing the ego self. In fact, ego, I'm surprised I'm even using that word, because I usually use the word personality. Ego, the word itself, is filled with terrible PR, lots of dogma around what it means. But what I'm talking about is that part of you that has to interface with this world, and there's realities of that. So again, I'm all for polishing your personality, as part of the deal, but not trying to eradicate it. So kind of that's the core of what I'm about. And I guess in terms of what I'm against, if there's an against as such, is that ego bashing. It's making ourselves wrong for where we are. I mean, I'd like to see a world where there's fundamentally more kindness. There's more humanity and more authenticity about our humanity. And especially in the realm of people who do awakening stuff, people who do personal growth. I'd like to see people really acknowledging, sort of with humility, humbleness. Again, the idea of humbleness is like, I'm going to be meek. I'm not talking about being meek. I'm talking about being the humility that is humble enough to acknowledge that I am incomplete. I'm still working on it. I'm still moving forward. And one of my biggest things for anybody that I meet in my coaching practice, on my seminars, in my online courses, all of those things that I do, is to help people start where they are. Starting where you are means you meet yourself at a point of power. If you want to pretend or think you ought to be further advanced in any situation than you are, you're starting off unbalanced. You're starting off in a place which is not not connected to the truth of the moment. So I'd love to see this world filled with more conscious yet real yet humble people. Humble in the sense that we can all say to each other, yeah, in this area, I mean, I've done great guns in here, but this is as far as I've got. Or I'm really good on these things, but this, oh my God, I'm a total dumbass in this area. Despite all of the stuff that I'm brilliant at, it's just an area that is coming up now, and it's where I'm at. So I'm willing to be in a space where I'm open to learning. And that's as true for me as it is for anybody else. My commitment to imperfection that I started with, for me, is more around my business. It's more about getting stuff out there, visibility, those kind of things, which some people will look at me and go, well, you're really visible. You always get stuff out there. But in my own reckoning, compared to myself, I'm looking at how can I be imperfect, hence turning the mic on and just talking to you today. And I guess in terms of, I'd like to see more of this sort of authentic human expression, this interrelating in that way. And what I'd like to see less of really is the peer pressure. My experience is there's a lot of dogmatic judgment in the name of spirituality and personal development. And this is an absolute passion of mine. So I would love if together on this podcast, we can make the world a place that has a lot less of that judgment. I mean, self-acceptance is a bit of a buzzword, but really when I go there, it's like, let's be real people. Let's be people that say, well, I mean, the whole thing of what it means to be conscious or spiritual, it's like you have to wear, an identity, a uniform. It means this is what it means. If you're conscious, you'll eat certain foods, you'll do certain practices. You won't do things. There's things that if you if they do that, then they haven't done their work. I mean, that's just, in my mind, bullshit. We all are where we are. We all make our choices. This is really key to part of, for me, being a brilliant human is being yourself, and let it be a discovery. It's like, who am I? It's a big question, but who am I? And that might mean that you do things that other, in quote, spiritual people disapprove of. Well, in my view, that's really their problem. And so how can we embrace our true selves in that way? So really, I guess my vision for this podcast, and this is also true of my vision for the world. I mean, I would love to see people that can just authentically grow. I'd love to see the world filled with people. I'd love you, if you're joining me on this podcast, to have the experience that many of my clients have and the people that come to my courses, which is that deep level of self-acceptance, that sense of coming into the, I mean, some of my core values is that you matter. So I matter, you matter, we matter. To discover your value, but not the value that is based on, ticking certain spiritual or personal growth boxes, but just intrinsically you matter. So my vision is this world where people can be really real, authentic through that, and dropping those marks. I mean, one of the real gifts of MPA specifically that I found over the years is you don't have an investment in being a certain person. That means you drop the mask. That means that you can connect with people and have that sort of sense of intimacy with people faster, quicker, more authentically, without sort of having to compromise yourself. So that's kind of my big vision. So where are we? Oh my God, I've already done almost 17 minutes. Fantastic. Other thing to say in terms of just introducing the podcast. So this is a podcast where I'm sharing, but obviously this is my business. This is my livelihood. I'm passionate about it. I'm very lucky that I do this work, which it's one of those classic things. I do it for free, but I have to pay the bills, and I'd like to do well. So I have lots of products and sort of offerings, courses, those kind of things. So I will be talking about those, during the podcast. And of course, all of my products and offerings are to help you be a brilliant human, to be a better version of yourself, to learn and to grow. So I will be encouraging you to use those. Although it's, again, a big part of my philosophy is that, my offerings aren't the way, right? They're not the way, they're a way. So it's a question of, if you resonate with me and what I offer, I'm going to encourage you to come along and take advantage of those. That will be part of this podcast. So what else do I want to cover? I had some instructions from, by the way, shout out to James Lavers. You want to look him up, the Lazy Coach. He's running the course that I'm doing today. He works with entrepreneurs generally in the sort of the coaching and well-being space, businessy entrepreneurs. And it's his course I'm on, and he's encouraged me today to do this. So big shout out to him. So what was on my list of things before I wrap this up? I guess, I didn't cover my plan is to do a podcast every week. How long they'll be, I don't know. This one's already longer than I expected to be. You can find me on social media. So generally you'll find me at Joel Young MPA. So on Facebook, Joel Young MPA, Twitter, Joel Young MPA, Instagram, Joel Young MPA. And also then YouTube, actually, my YouTube channel is actually also called Be a Brilliant Human. And that's easy to find. It's just youtube.com/Joel Young. And then I've got a Facebook page, which is NPA Rocks, which might seem like a strange name, but it was made by an actual NPA fan back in the day when Facebook called them fan pages. So it was an original, actual fan page, and the name's kind of stuck. So do check me out on there. So yes, I'll be publishing these weekly. I may over time make them more professional with the front and end. I don't know. We'll see. I would love to hear from you because, again, part of this, it's kind of a big experiment for me. So, let me know. You can get hold of me either through those social media platforms. You can email me, Joel, at nonpersonalawareness.com, and let me know, what do you want from this? How can I help you? What are the issues that are going on in your life that you would like me to pontificate about, and to continue practicing my imperfection with you? So do let me know. And also, please do subscribe. So you know how it is. Subscriptions, whatever platform you're listening to this on, you can hit the subscribe button. That means that the platform you're on will let you know when I release the next episode, so you can download them. And of course, that's great, because the more people who subscribe, the more people who see it, the more of this community we can build. And also, go ahead and check out my website, which is joelyoungmpa.com. On there, you'll see, one thing that you can do straight away. If you've never heard of MPA, what the hell is MPA? You can download. It's a simple 6-line process. You'll find on that homepage there's a place you can download that for free. So I encourage you to go ahead and do that and play with MPA. And again, do connect, ask me questions. I'm really up for discovering, what this community is going to be. So I think that's it. With a little cough at the end. I'm going to have a quick look down my notes to see what else. Oh, I know one more thing before I go. My original intention when I thought about doing this podcast was to do what they call repurpose, to repurpose my content. What that means is I've got quite a lot. If you look at Instagram, for example, or the Facebook page, generally I'll put out pictures with some nice words, memes they're called on them, and what I call a mini blog. And so maybe from time to time, I'll use those as inspiration for what to talk about. I might read them to you, but then discuss it. So it's kind of, this podcast is a good way to get kind of, social media posts plus, because I'll probably pontificate around them in more detail. So that's one of the things to do. So I think that's it. In the interest of imperfection, I'll wrap up. Do subscribe. Do come find me on social media. Say hello. If you want to have some input, you can send me an email at some point. I may set up a page for this. But thanks so much for listening. Oh my God, you've got to the end. I really do honor and appreciate and feel the privilege of you taking the time listening to me, downloading this and sharing it if you feel like sharing it. I know I'm someone who, one of the reasons I want to do a podcast is I'm a podcast listener. So I know that there are people that I listen to. I do hope I become one of those kind of top 5 podcasts of yours that you look out for every week. I have those. People offer value. That's a big, big thing. I want to offer you value. I want to entertain you. I want to be real with you. I want to get to know you, all of those things. So thank you so much for listening. This has been my first podcast. As I'm about to publish it today, chances are we'll be publishing on Tuesdays. And hopefully you can also subscribe to my chat mail. If you sign up for the free MPA sheet, you'll be getting onto my chat mail. So I'll be letting you know that way when these things go live. So big love to you guys. Thanks so much. And I will see you next week.